Welcome to podcast 43. Yes, 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 maybe, but yes.
Take it away, Chris.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is podcast 43, and we're here with a very special guest, one Mr. Pate Duncan, and he's here to talk Woody Allen with us.
Yeah, just shameful that I'm having to attach my name to this man publicly, but someone's got to do it.
That's right.
Someone's got to step up.
Especially someone who's watched how many of his feature films now?
41, I think.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, 41. 41 of his features, and then also a couple shorts.
Well, this will be interesting because I've only seen 2 of his movies.
Oh, dog, you're in for a treat.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the hottest mid you'll find out there,
Mm-hmm.
Some of the most interesting uses of digital video to make a film look like an overripe fruit. I mean, it's certainly something.
Well, I guess we can. With that being said, we can kind of get into to Pate. What have you been watching over the past week besides some Woody Allen films, or talk about any honorable? Well, I guess I should say any ones that you want to discuss about.
Yeah. So let me just. Recently, actually last night, I watched Lucille Hadjihalilovich's Innocence. She's Gaspar Noé's wife. And Innocence is her 2004 film that's about like a boarding school for girls where they arrive in coffins. And they have these little ribbons around on their pigtails that they all have to have that like denote their age. The oldest ones wear a certain color and the youngest ones wear a certain one. They have permutations through that, and there's like a very rigid sort of rules that they have where they're trained in like science and biology and dance, and then like they're not allowed to leave, and then things just sort of get kind of macabre and weird. And it's sort of I've been reading Palmer's book Brutal Intimacy, and he has a bit on that, but also on Cinema du Corps, which is sort of like that French wave of films in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and a little bit beyond. That's very upsetting. Irreversible is a great sort of centerpiece of that, but also like Fat Girl or Catherine Breillat's Romance, any of those films. And what I liked about this one was that it takes those expectations you have. Irreversible is one of the most gratuitous films you could ever see, and it does the exact opposite, which is this is sort of a spoiler for it, but there's no on-screen extremity shown. There's intimations that these girls are being groomed. That they're being because there's a part where they have to do this dance for an audience that we can't see, and they're in their little ballerina outfits. And then when they turn a certain age, and when they like hit puberty, they get aged out of the school and sent off. We don't know where. And by the end of the film, we're like expecting them to be delivered into the laps of Jeffrey Epstein, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they're just like let loose in like a modern day Parisian park, and they play in a fountain, and they see some guy, and so they're just like back into the world. And I think it's really interesting because it outsources any of like the extremity or grotesque stuff that could be shown on screen and would have been shown in like a Catherine Breillat or even like Trouble Every Day or Marina Devan's In My Skin. That would have been shown in those films, but none of it's shown here. So it subverts all expectations from the entire filmmaking that she's been sort of a part of up to that point. Because she was the editor for I Stand Alone. She done a like an erotic sort of condom ad that Gaspar did a similar one. That's a horrible film. It's called Sodomites. Very him. But it subverts all its expectations, and I think it's very, very interesting. So that's what I've been watching.
I didn't know that he was married. I mean,
like she dedicated the film to him. Like there's no ending credits, but the last thing is sort of saying like Gaspar at the end. So they have, and she was actually pretty influential in the script writing for Into the Void, and I think some production, like she did Le Cinéma du Zone or whatever. Their production company. She's the other half of that. So
wow, okay, that's interesting. Did you feel any of? I'm just curious. I'm assuming they influence. Like you said, the film was dedicated to him.
Okay.
Were there any like
Mhm.
visual influences within her film that you could see maybe
Well,
came from him?
so Benoit Debie is the cinematographer for both of them, for Irreversible and for this, and I think he
Mhm.
did some other films with Gaspar. But the thing is, she's doing the opposite of him, right?
Yeah.
Gaspar Noé has never been subtle in his life, which is something I love
Yeah.
about him. I mean, he's just all sort of extremity, making you upset, showing as much as he can that, I mean, otherwise hasn't been shown on screen before in very upsetting ways. And she sort of says like, okay, I'm going to one up you. I'll make the same feeling that people get watching your films without showing any of that.
Mhm.
So it's almost like watching a creative couple try and one up each other, which I
Mhm.
think is really, really interesting because they do the opposite thing stylistically, but come to a similar place like tonally or thematically.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it's I was not aware of her of Gaspar Noé's wife until I saw you logged her work.
It's a criminally underseen film, I think. It's really, really good.
I'll have to check it out.
Well, I watched this week a lot of things, and I'm gonna, I guess, talk about. I wanted to talk about something that I know that the two of you have seen. So I finally got around to watching Michael Haneke's Funny Games.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I mean, I watched it. I watched it with my girlfriend, and like immediately after, she turned to me and she said, "Let's we need a palate cleanser after that.
Why
Let's
would you
watch
do
some
that?
Simpsons."
What? No.
But I enjoyed it, but I don't think I liked it as much as some people seem to like it. I kind of found the fourth wall breaking stuff. I don't know. I found it kind of a bit um to use a word, masturbatory, but
Okay. We got Ben Noble up here. All right.
yeah. Did he use? I wonder if he
For,
used it
for,
when we did the Buffalo episode.
it probably came up somewhere. For me, Ben Noble invented that word. Um,
Yeah.
my elevator pitch for why I like Funny Games, I think, is
Mhm.
just because it's sort of one of the first films to do that negotiation of on-screen violence and spectatorship. Like,
Yeah.
like I think if he had made that movie after we'd had other ones that did it, and especially if you've already watched other films that do that same thing, you might not like it as much. But contextually speaking, I think him being very early on it and him also like he's not too like makes provocative films, but his outside personality is not that of a provocateur. He's no Lars von Trier doing random
No.
antics, right?
Mhm.
He has always been like, oh, I want to critique sort of bourgeois values and like those sorts of things, and addressing the spectator. I mean, Benny's video that he did before is similarly involved in that.
Well, and it's like it's not like, I mean, it is it's a pretty shocking film, but it's not like it doesn't like hold on the camera with a lot of like parts. It does still like veer away from kind of going into like an exploitive type
Yeah.
thing
Mhm.
in the same way that the other movie that I watched this week did, which I hated, Run Hide Fight,
Oh,
the film produced by Mr. Ben Shapiro of the
The Ben
Daily
Shapiro.
Wire, which was which I mean, he didn't really have a hand in making. It was just more like distribution. But it's made by that studio that made Dragged Across Concrete, Brawl in Cell Block 99, that type of stuff. So kind of like medium low budget films. And I mean, I think that those are two pretty good movies, but I found this movie to be absolutely awful and exploitive, and it just in the worst way possible. It actually reminded me, because it's about a school shooting, and the way that it deals with the subject matter, like in the way that it's more like giving you, you're supposed to think about it in the sense of like, what would you do
ugh.
like in a kind of serious way, and And so it's the equivalent, I put in my review that it's the equivalent of that Mark Wahlberg quote about 9/11, where he said, if I was on that plane with my kids, it wouldn't have went down like it did. What?
That's just he's the Kevin Feige of making reactionary exploitation.
Yeah, like it's just like I'm gonna be the hero. I'm gonna do all this stuff. Like, and it's just like, I don't know. It's just a power fantasy of people who just, I mean, her dad in the movie, like, literally, like, starts sniping the shooters from a grassy knoll.
That's
like,
disgusting.
I know. I mean, that's the thing, is like that every single thing that came across, my jaw continued to drop with how completely tasteless it was, and how you're supposed to take it seriously. I thought it was a horrible film. I usually never give movies half stars. Of all the films that I've watched, I think of the 1,800, this is only the 20th. So I think that kind of shows you how awful it was.
Yeah.
So don't watch this movie. I would strongly recommend not checking out Run, Hide, Fight.
If you want to watch another bad movie, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I saw the trailer on YouTube like a week or two ago, and then you told me about it. I had honestly completely forgotten about it. But what were you gonna say, Pate?
That's good.
I was gonna say, if you want to watch a better bad movie released recently, I'd go with Malcolm and Marie, but certainly not equivalent in terms of their ideology.
Yeah, we actually
throw in. Oh, sorry. I just want to throw in one thing super quick about funny games. Not to backtrack too far, but
no, that's fine.
I just think it. The reason I really enjoyed funny games, I got the Criterion like last year, I think, or so, and I watched it and I really enjoyed it, but I wanted to learn more, and I watched some of the interviews with the director, and Haneke was talking about how all these thrillers from America were kind of becoming so popular in America, and it was a weird kind of, people had a weird obsession with, like this a dark obsession with like murder, right? And so like, to me, I kind of see Psycho as the beginning of, that the thriller kind of psychological thriller thing coming into America, and or however you want to put it. But so I do really enjoy thrillers, and as being someone that really enjoyed thrillers, it was kind of weird because I'd never thought about how people had really like obsessed about it in America. People are always waiting for the next true crime doc or, whatever Netflix is putting out. And being someone that does find that stuff interesting, it was weird. It was weird and interesting to kind of see it inverted in a way, and for people and their expectations with these movies to be completely pushed to the side, and for Haneke to kind of like manipulate that. That's why I thought that film was so interesting. But sorry, I don't mean to,
No, you're good. I mean, like, to circle back on that, like, because I had the same experience where I watched it and I was like, okay, I liked it, but like, I kind of wanted a little bit of a justification for it. And so I did the same thing. And I recently read Simon Haas's book, Cultivating Extreme Art Cinema, which is basically about movies like Funny Games, or like Sallow or something, and how they get home video releases, and how oftentimes the home video releases will either play into the exploitation factor of these movies, putting like the sexualized like bodies from Sallow on the cover or something. And then they'll also like do the other way, and they'll like have an interview with a director or a scholar who like situates it within academic discourse and stuff like that. And so it gives the viewer like an understanding of it beyond just the sort of exploitation shock factor. So I did that with Funny Games, and I had to do it too with Catherine Breillat's Fat Girl. That shit's unpleasant. I mean, just like I got texts from people out, and I think Chris, you did this too. Texts from people after they watched it being like, "Hey, I need you to tell me why you like it, because this is awful." And I had to sort of be like, I had the same reaction. But no, I think that's one of the best things about physical media is having those sorts of paratexts out like right in your grasp to be able to get a bit of a handle on something that's very ideologically thorny.
Like, it elevated, I mean, not to write on Criterion a little bit more, but when I got the In Cold Blood Criterion, I watched that and I loved it. And then it was just a very dark film, but then the interviews and the complimentary stuff that they put with it, just it elevated the experience a lot more. So I completely agree. But I guess to kind of circle back in our circle back, me and Chris were super interested to hear what you thought about Malcolm and Marie, because we both have been talking about it. Me and Chris haven't seen it, but we're interested to get someone's opinion on it to see if it's worth watching.
Yeah, so I have to cite Ben Noble with what I say about this, because I woke up to a text from Ben saying he's doing fucking contempt in Malcolm and Marie, and I was like, oh god, no one said that yet in any of the interviews, and I like contempt. So I was like, okay, I think Ben and I are going to be of the same mind when it comes to this, and so he was telling me his thoughts as he went about it. And I watched it later in the day, and I was like, it's doing contempt, because like the opening bit, like after they sort of enter the house, is this lateral tracking movement around like an overhead light fixture that bifurcates the couple. Which, if you've seen Contempt, there's a scene in the apartment, the very famous apartment scene, that's doing the exact same thing. That it's like, because it's using the CinemaScope aspect ratio it has to just track back and forth between them, and almost as a joke. And it just sort of takes the stylistic panache of that for this. But to talk about it more broadly, it's a beautifully shot film. You know, like you can, like, I would watch it just because like it's pretty to look at. It's one of the prettiest films to come out this year. But in terms of its writing, it is really grating to me, because I'm
that
sort
Barry
of
Jenkins thing was really what turned me off.
God. Like that's one of the better parts of it, is like the take he has, you know, sort of talking about like how oftentimes like we care so much about the identity of the creator more so than we do the work. But then that becomes sort of problematic when we consider that Sam Levinson is the only person with a writer's credit on this film.
Yeah, he's white.
So he's sort of like and again, I think that like saying critics are idiots is a fine take to have, but when you're putting it in your movie to like I don't know, to sort of circumvent any criticism coming at it in the first place, to bake in a defense of the movie within the movie, I find to be a bit cowardly. But most of all, I think that Sam Levinson is just not a good writer of dialogue, right? Like, so again, I've watched every major Ingmar Bergman feature. I love the Beatrice and Petra von Kant. I love any kind of austere chamber play. I've watched Cassavetes, the sort of box set that has a lot of his very talky films that are like that. And Sam Levinson is none of these people, because it is one note for the entire argument in terms of dialogue. Like they're just screaming at each other for most of the runtime. And then there's little bits of it that are broken up by him like eating mac and cheese, the way that like Rooney Mara eats pie in A Ghost Story.
God.
Yeah.
Oh my.
And then like the worst part about it is like, you know, I think a very early screenwriting like maxim people have is like, if you're writing an argument, both people need to be right or whatever. And it's not that for this, you know. Zendaya is clearly from the beginning to the end and everywhere in between the person who's in the right here. And her boyfriend serves as this heel, you know. We get John David Washington sort of, he can't do a single thing right. Like Zendaya is only, Marie is only mean or in the wrong in response and in retaliation. And so it just becomes this weird exercise of splitting Sam Levinson's psyche into the sadistic and the masochistic, where Zendaya becomes this sort of masochistic force on whom like all of his ire is thrown, only for her to do a reversal and like call out all the bad things that Levinson sees in himself. So it's really just, and then there's like these weird hinges, right? So in a chamber play or an argument scene, power often shifts from one character to another. And how you do that is very important. And it's the same problem. He almost borrows the exact same words that was done in Trouble Don't Last, the Euphoria special with Zendaya. There's lots of like, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean like, and they cut off right there, right as the power dynamic is changing. And I just think that's very lazy, because before I watched that Euphoria special, I was writing a script myself and I was like doing an argument like that. And I found myself doing those things. I was like, ooh, that's a little on the nose. That's a little easy. And so I did a rewrite of it, and then I watched it in a Sam Levinson feature, and I was like, oh God, he's just doing the first draft of an argument scene. So
Yeah.
to put a bow on it, I would watch the film just because it's pretty to look at. It's shot on film, which I appreciate in this day and age. But I mean, God, I mean, the performances are pretty good at times. I think John David Washington is the better performance, even though he has the worst material. But it is written horribly. You have to see it to believe it.
I mean, I've seen Assassination Nation, so I know the awful writing that Sam Levinson.
Okay, but put that in a chamber drama. Put that in a pressure cooker of emotion, and just imagine what kind of shit comes out. God.
Yeah, I was more interested in Assassination Nation just because I heard a good bit of stuff of it, a good bit about it, I guess, last Sundance or this Sundance prior. I
have some friends who really like it. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really weigh in.
I think it's incredibly obnoxious, but I find it to be edited very shoddily and obnoxiously. I find that most of the characters are annoying. But yeah, I think it also, I think it tries to say something about violence in contemporary society, and then it completely just ignores what it's trying to say with the ending. I don't know. Sam Levinson, like I said, one of the worst creators right now.
He's just really inarticulate, I think. See, I watched Euphoria as it came out, and I liked it in my initial watch of it, but I have sort of soured on it a little bit recently. And the thing is, like, I think Zendaya and Hunter Schafer are amazing in it. Hunter Schafer especially breaking. I hope she does great things because I really like her.
Yeah,
definitely. I enjoy Zendaya a lot too. But I don't know. I mean, like the fact that it's like, so shows about teenagers oftentimes sexualize them because that's who the audience is, right? Riverdale is going to have everyone look sexy because the people who are watching it are the same age to the characters or who they're supposed to be. But HBO is meant for adults. So when you have an HBO television series about teenagers who ostensibly aren't able to watch it because of, it's a TVMA thing that they are not allowed to watch by law or whatever, unless they have their parents there. And you have the teenagers sexualized, or as Ben Nobles put it, sucking and fucking the whole time, which is sort of what happens.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little bit weird. I'm not, I get, like, I hate that it's so fitting for this episode to talk about that. But I'm not going to say like Sam Levinson is a pervert, just because I don't think I can really make that judgment.
I mean, that's how I felt.
Though. I think it's
that's how I felt too, because I figured I'd give it a try, Euphoria shot. And I got like 2 episodes in, and I was like, I don't know why, but I just feel like wrong watching this. Like, it just doesn't feel like, as a 21-year-old.
And here's what you can do. Here's your benchmark. Watch Spider-Man Homecoming or Spider-Man Far From Home, where Zendaya also plays a teenager about the same age, and compare the way they look. Night and day.
Yeah,
night and day. She looks like a normal teenager in the Marvel film, and she does not, and like no one does in Euphoria. And it's so overly sexual in a way that I think, like, when you're a teenager watching it, you're like, oh yeah, I think I get that. Like, it does make sort of sense. But like when you're watching it and realizing that it's made on a network that sort of made Sex and the City and The Sopranos and makes television content exclusively for adult audiences, it becomes a little bit weird.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely one of those moments, like, where you realize, well, I am getting older, like, because it wouldn't, because like, even 3 years ago, we probably wouldn't have even given it a second thought.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. I heard about it, but I first heard about it through there was like a news article that was going around about, they had like a ton of prosthetic penises in it or something. I don't remember what exactly what it was, and I was just like, oh,
it's like the 3rd episode, I think, because there's like a locker room scene where like they're all walking around just dicks out.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, I don't know. I know A24 is doing it, so I guess they were trying to, I don't know. I don't want to
It's
make a claim
competing
because it's
audiences
weird.
there.
Yeah.
Because like A24 has like the film Twitter sort of like teens going ham for whatever they do, and HBO does not. You know, HBO
Yeah.
is usually for adults. I mean, they make Oz, a lot of their stuff, and I guess they've had a bit more youth oriented stuff. This for an HBO Max series, I wouldn't necessarily have the same reservations, but I think that specifically in doing it in its prime time slot, that
Yeah.
is ostensibly not made for teenagers. It's just a little weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess to switch it to something a little bit more lighthearted, I watched a few films, not too many. There's really only two I really want to talk about, but I started off by watching John Carpenter's The Fog, which I've always heard about it because my dad would tell me about it when I was really young, and I've always been wanting to watch it, and I finally got a chance to. And I don't think I'm like super crazy about it. I don't think it's like a bad John Carpenter film. It might have one of my more favorite Carpenter scores on it. But I love like these little towns, and it mainly just centers on this little group of people. There's not really a main character, but it just kind of flip flops from character to character, or characters to characters, however you want to look at it. But yeah, I thought it was a decent little movie. Maybe the third act is a little anticlimactic, but you know, it's fine. But the other one I briefly wanted to talk about was called The Edge. Have either of y'all heard about this movie?
I don't think so.
Okay. So I was actually gonna watch Deliverance, and I've been having this issue recently of, do I want to watch something regular and good, or do I want to watch something really stupid and bad? This has been the constant
feel that.
fight, yeah,
Yeah.
in my mind. So I looked up Deliverance, and I saw this movie called The Edge, and it's got Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin in it, and I was like, oh my God. So I looked at it, and then I read I read the synopsis, and it's basically like Anthony Hopkins is married to like this supermodel, and Alec Baldwin is the photographer who takes photos of her. And Anthony Hopkins suspects them of having an affair, and they go out on he goes with his wife on a shoot, and it's like out in the middle of these mountains or whatever. And long story short, Alec Baldwin and Anthony Hopkins are on a plane together, and it crashes, and they have to fight a bear. So naturally, I couldn't turn away from it.
I was gonna say, and Woody Allen didn't direct this
Yeah.
because I mean, what's it called? You and Me, a Tall Dark Stranger has Anthony Hopkins in it. Blue Jasmine has Alec Baldwin. It sounds like a scrambled Allen film, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's no big deal. Yeah, it's I don't think it's as funny or as crazy as I was hoping it to be, but it definitely does have its moments. The bear, his name is Bart the bear, or that's the bear actor's name. It's a real bear. The scenes with the bear are truly pretty humorous. And I love the final confrontation. And again, I could say the same thing that I said about The Fog, is maybe the third act loses a little bit of its steam, but I still think it's like an entertaining survival, like woods survival story. But yeah, no, it just like the synopsis kind of threw me for a loop. I didn't know what to expect from it. So
How does it stack up against other bear survival films like The Gray, or what's the
Revenant.
The Revenant? Yeah.
Well, I'm not really a big fan of The Revenant. I'd say
I don't like it either.
yeah, I'd say The Revenant's probably more of a quality film than this. I don't think this movie's bad. I just I don't know how often I'll be thinking about it. I think probably the thing I'll think about more is like the potential and the smile on my face when I read the synopsis. And there's a few moments where it really taps into like that absurdity of just these two actors and the situation at their end, and that they have to fight a bear. It does have
that's worth
moments.
something.
Yeah, but
Yeah. One last thing that I watched that I did want to touch on was Douglas Sirk's All That Heaven
Yes,
Allows,
sir. Yes, sir.
which is incredible, which was a fantastic film. Like I thought it was I was completely blown away. I thought that the I do really like melodramas, and I think that kind of reading about like how like kind of breaking down a melodrama and like kind of how like the dialogue's like very like rhythmic, kind of like back and forth. Um, Kind of with that perspective going into this, I think it also aided with my enjoyment of it and kind of like analyzing the conversations between Jane Wyman and Rock Hudson. It's a very colorful film, great utilization of Liszt in the score, and yeah, just like I don't think Autumn has looked this beautiful in any other movie, and I think it's tragic, it's beautiful. What's not to love? I think Cirque is. I also really want to check out Imitation of Life, which is another Cirque film that I've heard a lot of great things about. But I don't know. What you have anything to say on All That Heaven Allows, Pate? I know that you've seen it.
Gosh, I love it. I've seen Magnificent Obsession as well, which freaks me out because I have this big fear of going blind. That's one of the plot points of it. But
yeah, then you
I
can
mean,
watch
like
movies.
oh
Yeah.
gosh,
I'm with
in
you
the
on
dark
there,
too.
Pate.
Yeah, I'm with you.
No, but no. Few directors have such a legacy that I like really enjoy as much as Douglas Sirk does.
Well, I
So,
guess since you are a Fassbender,
well, you have Fassbender, you have
Yeah.
John Waters with Polyester, you have Todd Haynes with what is it? Oh gosh, he's got the one with
Heaven.
Julianne
It's
Moore.
something
Not Safe.
Far from Heaven.
Oh,
Far
Poison.
Far from Heaven.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no, Far from Heaven is like a straight Cirque, like
Yeah.
pastiche. It's great, and then also even Safe has elements of sort of the domestic melodrama thing going on with it too. I mean, you can't get too much better than that. He's really inspired some of my some filmmakers with whom I really resonate. And just going back and watching that, it's a weepy that you can like sort of feel smart watching. I think that oftentimes those kinds of popular films have been derided, and I think there's some interesting sort of scholarship that's worked to sort of reclaim that. But like you don't even have to do that to enjoy it. You can just sit there and cry. That's the best part about it. I think that movies like that are able to do critique or whatever, or like do like deconstructor genre, really need to really buy into it just to really sort of sell whatever it is they're doing. If you're just sort of half-assing it, I think that it'll always show up. And any critique that's baked into that film comes with the fact that he's at the same time like doing exactly what it should be for a melodrama.
It felt also quite progressive for when it was made. I felt as well, kind of the class dynamics of Rock Hudson being kind of this blue collar gardener and her being like this middle class like widow, and kind of like how she kind of turns against all of her peers that look down on her.
I hate her kids so much in that movie. Like I wanted to run them over with a car.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, because I mean they're just I don't know, they're just really just I don't know, just they just don't care about their mom's happiness. But I think it all kind of culminates in that brilliant scene with the TV set that her son gets her for Christmas, and you just see the framing of how she's completely alone on the couch and she realizes that she made the wrong mistake of not being with Rock Hudson. But yes, that's yeah. But yeah, that's all I have. If anybody else has anything to talk about before news,
I'm all good. I didn't have a ton of time this week. Yeah. All right. Well, we can hop into the news. Amy Poehler has directed a movie for Netflix called Moxie, which will be a teen teenage feminist movie from what I've kind of been reading about it. And and I hope I pronounce this right, but John M. Chu is directing the Wicked movie, which it will be an adaptation of the play that's the Wizard of Oz kind of story, but from the Wicked Witch of the West's perspective. I hope I'm right. It's been
Wicked, the play.
yeah, the play. It's gonna be an adaptation of the
Oh.
play. Um, in other news, Buck Rogers is there are two competing projects in development for Buck Rogers. One of them is with I couldn't understand. I was reading the article. I couldn't really understand who was against who, and from my knowledge, with the character of Buck Rogers, the creator's estate has kind of always fought over it. I'm assuming, so it's the rights have been kind of twisted up and stuff. So it's kind of hard for stuff to get move. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's hard for projects to move forward with the estate's approval. So
A Buck Rogers film adaptation seems like a very 90s thing to do.
yeah,
I don't know.
apparently
Like Galaxy Quest and
yeah, Legendary's working on it, I think, but it's through Skydance, and then George Clooney's production company came up somewhere in the article, and I think they are kind of overseeing it for Skydance, but I couldn't really figure out who was against who per se. But then the trailer for Amazon's Coming to America sequel dropped over the weekend, I want to say, or within the week.
I saw it on the during the Super Bowl yesterday. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't. I haven't heard great things about the trailer. I haven't watched it. Do you want to give your first impressions, guys?
Well, I mean,
yeah,
I mean, my expectations are already quite low, so I mean,
mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't like I was disappointed or anything, but I was just like, it just made me scratch my head again and think, why, you know, why make a sequel to a pretty mediocre, not really that good film from the 80s in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to see Eddie Murphy. You know, he's still getting roles, I suppose.
Yeah, but he did that Dolomite movie. Like, I want more of that, you know.
Yeah,
I guess.
Agree. I still need to see that one, but I heard it was pretty good.
My thing is, Amazon's been sort of throwing their money wherever. I mean, without them, this episode might be a little bit less rich, given the fact that a number of Amazon productions of Woody Allen's films have sort of been the way he's gotten to make features. Even a mini series with Miley Cyrus, of all people, and Elaine May.
Oh,
so strange.
Oh yeah.
What? Elaine May?
Yeah, Elaine May, Miley Cyrus are in Crisis in Six Scenes, which is a period piece about her as like a leftist anarchist hiding in their home. It's kind of great.
That sounds awesome. Now,
I
if
totally
only
forgot
Amazon,
about that.
Now, if only Amazon will give money to Elaine May so she'll direct another feature film, I will gladly
I'll
support
second that
endeavor. Yeah.
Yorgos Lanthimos and Emma Stone are reportedly reuniting again for a Frankenstein-style film called Tail Poor Things, I think, or Take Poor Things. I think it's Tail Poor Things.
I like calling it Frankenstyle. That should be a new term, honestly.
I can't seem to talk right tonight. I don't know what's going on, but with all the streaming services popping up, Arrow is taking after the Criterion and Disney Plus, or however you want to do it. But Arrow Video is launching a streaming service. No news on when, but it is.
Is it going to be in the U.S.? Because I know they're sort of pretty big.
They operate out of the U.K. So
yeah, I think it is. I have to look more into it, but they released like a trailer as like an announcement trailer. That would be a better word for it. There's a Wrong Turn reboot coming out, and the director the director of the original, either the director or the writer, is returning to kind of oversee it and make sure that it's moving in the right direction. But it's a UK production, which is interesting. Um, Zack Snyder's Justice League, along with a new trailer announcement, has officially been rated R. So
Yeah, it's gonna be
sick.
They suck.
awesome. That's pretty much that's a stamp of approval that it's gonna be awesome because it's
Yeah,
gonna be rated R.
it's
So
gonna be sick. And I hope I'm saying her name right, but Chloe Zhao is
yeah, that's right.
directing. Okay, cool. She's directing a Dracula adaptation, but it will be a sci-fi western for Universal.
She is staying booked and busy. God.
Yeah. This is
for her.
good. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
the curveball that I told you guys before we started recording. Mattel is looking to return to the film business, and they want to make a Uno film featuring Little Yachty as the main character.
What?
Yeah. So
What?
Wait. This is happening as like Barbie is having its movie with Greta Gerwig separately, correct?
I forgot that. Huh.
Yeah.
So the
Ooh.
why I said I hope it's happening is because it just sounds amazing. But they're reportedly eyeing him for it, but he announced to Twitter, he tweeted that he was like, yeah, I would love to do that. That would be awesome. I grew up playing Uno as a kid, and I'd love to be in an Uno movie. So I guess they're trying to Hanna-Barbera it.
Oh yeah, maybe
Yeah.
we'll get a Mattel extended universe.
Yeah, I don't know how they're gonna.
I can't wait for the Magic 8 Ball movie.
Oh, it will be live
Oh my
action.
God.
It won't be animated either.
Even better.
Yeah, that's. I don't. Pate, you said what would be the plot?
Yeah, like is he
Yeah.
gonna go to like an Uno tournament that like fights for his life, a la
God,
Mortal Kombat?
I
Called
hope
U.S.
so.
Anderson style.
Yeah,
That would be
we're getting a new
the
Mortal
only
Kombat
acceptable
too.
plot. Yeah,
yeah, we are getting a Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. Which did we talk? Yeah, we talked about the trailer forever ago when it first came out.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
The Marvel is working on Blade. They found their writer in Stacey Osai Kafour.
Yeah, she wrote Watchmen, I think.
Thank God they
Oh,
didn't get
yeah.
fucking Damon Lindelof doing that. I mean, I liked Watchmen, but his writer's room saved him in a lot of places, and he's even said as much. And I think some of the worst parts of that are when he caved to his own worst influences.
Well, Pate, I don't know if you saw the Blumhouse film The Hunt.
I did, and I did not like it. Not one bit.
I really did. I liked Watchmen, but I haven't seen The Hunt yet. It's just
You don't need to.
Yeah, that's what Chris said.
I know he wrote The Leftovers too, but you know my stance on prestige TV, fellas. So I'm gonna sit that one out.
I'll probably check that one out.
Yeah, and
I enjoyed it, but I just never finished it up. I mean, I haven't been in a TV state in a minute.
Yeah.
The closest thing I did was I've been watching Cape Shit. And that and WandaVision I have watched. I am ashamed to admit. It got me.
It's all right.
I'll probably check it out, but I'll probably wait till it's done and over with, just so I can binge it and be done with it. But I don't know how excited I am in all honesty.
That's fair.
Yeah. David Leith is already working on his next picture with Will Smith, and it'll be an action thriller movie called Fast and Loose. So that's a great title.
Fast and Loose.
M. Night Shyamalan has released a new teaser for his new film Old, which is centered around a family aging, I guess.
They do be getting old.
They do quite be getting old. And I know everyone loves to hear about it. But Eli Roth's Borderlands movie is moving forward, and they are currently eyeing Jamie Lee Curtis, which is just building that cast roster out. It's going to be an ensemble piece, I think.
Oh.
Um,
Mm.
mhm. And I just want to do. It feels like every week we're losing another great actor, and it's unfortunate, but we just wanted to wish the friends and families of Christopher Plummer, and Hal Halbrook. We hope they're doing okay and that they rest easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. One of the greats, Christopher Plummer,
Hmm.
gone, and he acted up till the end,
Hmm.
It was in Knives Out.
Hmm.
Yeah, he had a pretty good performance in Knives Out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, but I guess are you guys ready to take an ad break real quick?
Yeah.
Me.
All right. And we are back. Um, and this week's feature film is Crimes and Misdemeanors by Woody Allen. Pate, do you kind of want to give us a rundown of Crimes and Misdemeanors?
Yeah. So, Crimes and Misdemeanors from 1989. So Woody Allen got his start doing straight comedies, very screwball,
Mhm.
stuff like Bananas, Sleeper. And a lot of people liked him doing those. And then did Any Hall, which sort of was his big break, in terms of being won Academy Awards, Best Picture.
Mhm.
Um, and then immediately afterwards, he followed it up with Interiors, which was like a Bergman chamber play. People didn't like it. I think it's one of his better films, but that's him sort of really stepping into a dramatic mode. And
Mhm.
then we see him doing more exploration of that with as he goes through. So like something like Manhattan, Stardust Memories. Those have, I mean, there's certainly elements of comedy to them, but they are a bit more dramatic. Um, and
Yeah.
then something like as he gets through his filmography, September was sort of another sort of Bergman style chamber drama. And Another Woman was also quite sad or morose. In between that and Crimes and Misdemeanors, he did Oedipus Rex, which was a short included in New York Stories.
Mhm.
And so that's the sort of three-part film with Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola also making movies. I think that either Scorsese's or Allen's are the best of that one. And that
Mhm.
one's mostly a straight comedy. And then we get to Crimes and
I've heard
Misdemeanors.
Coppola's isn't too amazing.
Oh, God. It's
Yeah.
certainly something. But we get to Crimes and Misdemeanors, which is I mean, it's very Woody Allen in its construction. So it's a story about an ophthalmologist named named Judah Rosenthal, who is having an affair with a mistress, and he's trying to break it off. But she's growing increasingly desperate and threatening to tell his wife not just about their affair, but also his overseers at his job about his financial indiscretions, where he moved funds around.
Mhm.
And it's when that comes into play that he sort of plans to have her killed and taken care of.
Mhm.
Um, that's the crimes part of this. In the misdemeanor section, we sort of have Woody Allen as a documentary filmmaker named Cliff Stern, and he wants to do heavy subjects. Basically, has this pet project where he's interviewing a professor who and sort of like theologian, I guess, or professor of philosophy, who basically is sort of talking about humans and like morality and loving each other and all these kinds of very life affirming um, ideas. But
Mhm.
as that's happening, his brother-in-law, as a favor to his wife, um, named Alan Alda's Lester is the brother-in-law. Who's
Mhm.
Yeah,
great,
Lester. Yeah.
great guy, and such a great role he has in this one. He
Such an
basically,
asshole. He's
oh my gosh,
Yeah,
just the worst.
complete. Oh my God.
He commissions Alan to shoot a documentary about him as he's sort of a TV producer. He has a closet full of Emmys, he says, and Alan's character doesn't really care about that. But as this is happening, Alan's character Cliff is falling for Mia Farrow's um, Hallie Reed, who
Mhm.
is um, also working on the set with this. And so that's the misdemeanor is his sort of adultery with that. But as we see with it, doesn't necessarily turn out well for Cliff in the end.
Poor
And a
guy.
lot of this movie is sort of focused on I guess, the morality of these actions, because
Mm-hmm.
Judah Rosenthal was pretty much able to get away with his crimes, you know. But at the same time, he's thinking about, in his Jewish upbringing, how the eyes of God are always watching. And so whether or not people are able to act morally outside of any kind of moral system in the absence of God, people having to take into their own hands their own systems of morality, and whether or not they will even do that. But yeah, that's, I guess, a rundown for it.
Yeah.
I think you did a great job.
Yeah.
That's
I completely agree. Better than I think I've ever given a rundown of a movie. I normally just start by saying, "Yeah, it was good." And
I'm sorry.
oh, no. I meant that as a compliment. I'm sorry if that turned out weird.
No, you're good.
I love to just kind of hop into it. I love the exploration of the morality of these issues. And you know, the way kind of Woody Allen through this movie and Annie Hall that I watched this week in kind of preparation. I love the way that he moves through time in his films, and I think it's such a great benefit to this movie, that kind of way he moves throughout time, going back in time and doing flashbacks, but it never really feels like a proper flashback. And I love the way that the present day characters will go back to a time from their childhood and talk to, I think there's a scene where Judah talks to his father. And he's like, I've killed somebody. And then Judah's father is kind of giving his point of view on the matter, and how it should be handled in the eyes of God, and how someone would live with that act. And I think he has a line where he says, if you do a bad deed, or, you always have to live with it. And he says, I'm trying to remember the exact quote, but I'm struggling to remember it. But I love the exploration of morality in this film. And it also reminded me of In Cold Blood, which I wasn't expecting that. I honestly thought when I started watching Crimes and Misdemeanors that it was just going to be kind of like a dramedy. I didn't know it was going to be so. To me, it has a sense of dread almost, particularly with Judah's character. But it did. Have you guys seen In Cold Blood? I'm just curious.
I have never seen it.
Okay.
But I know that Alan's
I've read the book.
He's made a joke about, like, oh, here's the winner of the Truman Capote impersonation contest. And it was Truman Capote. It was actually Truman Capote. They had him on set.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
how about that?
It's a funny little bit they do there. It's sort of like, I don't know, that there's some other things like that in Annie Hall, but he's really good. To your point about flashbacks, he's very, very good at using a cutaway. I mean, it's almost like Family Guy-esque. I hate to use that comparison, but that's sort of, when we talk about cutaways now, we usually talk about that. And it's very interesting to see them used so well in something that's a bit more serious like this. But this is sort of in line with a couple of films in Alan's filmography that are really oriented about like guilt in that kind of way. And sort of like they come from, like, I guess he's a fan of Russian literature, so there's a bit of play off of that. But it's like Match Point, Irrational Man also, or sort of these things where, like, they explore someone doing a crime and potentially getting away with it.
Crime and Punishment.
Yeah.
The Dostoevsky novel. Like, I mean, like, the murder happens at the beginning of the book, and like the rest of the novel is like the main character having to deal with what he just did and the guilt kind of weighing on him. And I also I've kind of been keeping like a canon, a list of films that I consider to be like that deal with religion in I think a really good way, and I think that this film is worthy of being added to that list, because I've always thought that, like, religion is a very interesting topic, clearly because it's followed humanity for ever since we've been around. But I mean, like. But it's just like, there are just so many movies that whenever they try to deal with religion, because they're being made by people that don't know how to make movies, they're just like horrible.
Or like, I mean, in a very secular age, it's very rare that you'll find someone who takes religious thought like earnestly. They sort of will like, I don't know, take it. And Alan has historically been like pretty clearly agnostic or atheist in a lot
Oh
of his
yeah.
films, poking fun at religion in all kinds of ways. I mean, like Love and Death sort of has a good amount of that in it. Um, I don't know. And Alan's also tried to tackle heavy subject matter in a lot of his films, and I think to varied success. I think something like Interiors is just a bit too, I don't know, interested in the bird. I mean, its dialogue is sort of
It's
translated into Swedish and then back into English.
yeah,
Very much trying to be Bergmanian. But I think this is one where he gets it right in a lot of ways. He's able to tackle serious subject matter in a way that I think really, and I think it's partially because like you have him not playing Judah. Alan playing a dramatic role is sort of weird.
I don't think
and
I could have taken him seriously
no, God,
as
no.
yeah,
Judah.
I mean, I was there. There are a few. There aren't really a whole lot of parts of this movie that I was just like laughing, like just just completely like just going crazy because of how
Not
funny
a
the
side
joke was.
Mhm.
But the part where he has to edit Lester's like documentary and then they screen it and he intercuts it with like Mussolini footage and then he calls him a what is it, like a disgraced or no, a threat to democracy.
And he is taking from Jean-Luc Godard's Meet in WA.
Yeah, I
years
wanted
prior,
to.
right
Yeah, I
after
wanted to
Hannah and Her
talk
Sisters.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, because I mean, it's got a similar sort of weird documentary style where like they'll like fade to black as Alan's talking, or like do sort of random other things just to sort of undercut him as a personality, which I think is just it's very like it's sort of playful in that respect. But
Yeah.
I think it's nice that Alan was able to sort of like be a good sport with that and then use it later on in a film in one of the funniest sort of this film has some very interesting editing in that respect too, because oftentimes we'll cut immediately to a suture shot. We don't know what the point of view is, and we're sutured into it of a movie that's saying like murder, murder. After the murders happen, and then
Yeah,
we
as they're
like
at the movies. Yeah.
exactly we get the reverse
Uh-huh.
shot, and it's people actually in the thing, but the editing is sort of like being very self-conscious about how it's placed within the story that I think is sort of interesting in that respect.
The discussion of like the argument of tragedy plus time
Oh my
is
God.
also, I think, like that's I think that's one of the most truthful things that this film says philosophically, because I think I do strongly believe that in a lot of ways us as humanity, I don't know, I guess time really does heal all wounds, like in a lot of ways where things will just kind of happen, and like after a certain period it's just kind of like, all right, let's forgive each other, let's get over it. And so you have Judah, Martin Landau's character, kind of trying to, I guess, move past being responsible for murdering his mistress, and how like he's like it will always be with him, but he tries to like move past it. And I think that like the time heals all wounds motif is like you can just eventually it will just be gone and people will just forget about it. And then like you admit to it on your deathbed or something and people go, oh, and then you're kind of absolved. And if that's right or if that's wrong, it's not, it's just kind of like it just is, because like at that point it's too late. Yeah.
It's sort of like moral terror is tragedy plus time, right? Because he doesn't get over. I mean, he gets over it, but he doesn't ever have any sort of repentance. It becomes easier and easier for him to just go about his life, because it's almost like, I mean, it's like The House that Jack Built, the Lars von Trier film, which is basically like about a serial killer being like, I never got caught by the police. I don't have any repentance for what I've done. And then he like sort of describes the story of it. It's
the jinx that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
God.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
But I did want to ask, what did you guys think about the whole interaction that he had with, or like his, like the kind of scenes with his niece, like,
oh God.
given the story that we have of Alan now, it makes it even worse.
Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, I think the kisses on the lips, even back then, for an uncle and a niece to do, I think that's a little peculiar.
Yeah.
But it just, it's been made worse by I mean, and rightfully so. It's been made worse by the things that he has that have come out about him in recent time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gosh, it's certainly unpleasant to watch. I mean,
Yeah.
the bad thing I can say is like there's worse stuff in his filmography in terms of watching it from in hindsight, and considering it within these things. I mean, Sunyi Preben shows up as a young child in Hannah and Her Sisters,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
which is and Dylan Farrow's in this movie.
Mm.
He is.
It's just one of the kids in the at the ending wedding scene. It's watching Woody Allen at this point in time. There's some very very different. I mean, like watching fucking Manhattan. Ooh, he's dating a 17-year-old. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, he does that
Oh.
a lot. He kind of tells on himself, and all throughout his filmography. Like, I mean, I know you didn't get to it, Bolton, but in a rainy day in New York, me and Pate watched it together, and we kind of the first thing I think it was like one of the first things that we talked about was just the whole subplot where it's like, oh, we have to have Elle Fanning be like this, college girl that's getting like, oh, pretty much, I don't know, it's like trying to get a scoop with this like actor, the guy that's like much older than her, and like he kind of seduces her and kind of coaxes her with his power dynamics, and it's just all gross. Yeah.
Yeah. Woody Allen, I find him a little. I mean, I know he's supposed to be his characters are normally supposed to be funny, but I just find him like inherently funny in just his persona. And like he never can really take responsibility for a lot of his problems, and I think I'm thinking a little bit more of Annie Hall at the moment than I am
Crimes and
Misdemeanors.
Yeah.
But I just think it's like it's weird. It's so weird given everything, but I don't know where I was going with that, but
I think he's also cultivated that type of personality by kind of just being like, this is who I am. This is how I always am. Oh, look at me. I'm just this guy from New York.
Yeah.
And I'm so anxious about everything. And he even says in that Godard interview that, oh, I don't watch any of my movies. I don't know. I think it's like, why would you if that's who you are? But it's like, it's a lot more sinister.
Like looking in a mirror. Yeah.
Well, and my thing is like, Alan has sort of always like, there's his public persona and like who he is in an interview is a bit different, and who he is on screen is a little bit different. And for a lot of like Alan biographers or scholars, negotiating how much of that is character and how much of that is Woody Allen has been something they've wanted to do for a long time. Alan's own recollections has him saying that the characters that are most like him are, I think, the mother in Interiors, which neither of y'all have seen that yet, but that's like a wild thing to say because she's like a crazy, depressive Bergman character that's been transplanted into a movie of his. Cecilia from The Purple Rose of Cairo, which is Mia Farrow's character, and then something else. He's never said that the one characters that are most like him are the ones he plays. I'm not willing necessarily to take him at face value at that, and believe the thing he says. But I mean, I certainly think that he plays varying degrees of smarmy in his films. I think the most unpleasant character that he has is in Deconstructing Harry. He's just an asshole in that. Like literally like a parody version of him being bad. It is the movie is Wild Strawberries for Perverts.
Geez.
Yeah, but I think that's what I like that movie more, because I think that's his most honest self-criticism. A lot of his films are like, oh, I'm so neurotic, and then like he just sort of goes and does it, and nothing ever really happens. And when I was first so for a little backstory of me watching Alan's films, I hadn't watched any Allen films until maybe like 2 years ago. I didn't really know too much about him aside from like maybe he was like very creep. And I had some people in film club who were like big Woody Allen or fans of his films more so than him, I'm going to say. And they're like, you need to watch this. It's so good. And I watched a couple and I was like, I don't really buy into it.
I remember when you watched Hannah and Her Sisters and you were like, yeah, this is all right. This is the only, like, that was like the first one, I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, after a while, I watched a lot of his films because like his pacing is usually pretty energetic. It's an easy watch usually for a lot of these films.
They're all like an hour and 30 minutes too, around there.
Oh gosh, the man's a master of the tight 90.
Yeah,
that's right. That's why I like watching his movies, because they're good. Like you said, the pacing's good. They're 90 minutes. It's just like you just feel like you can just get one in whenever. You're just like, oh, I can. They're kind of light most of the time. Like, I don't know, Broadway Danny Rose, that was a nice watch. Anything else I wanted to bring up, which is his movie where it's his movie with Jason Biggs and Christina Ricci from like 2003, I believe, maybe 2004. And he plays a total asshole in that movie too. He's like, Jason Biggs, you gotta buy a gun. You gotta buy a gun to defend yourself. It's just like, Jason Biggs, you gotta, like, he's just giving Jason Biggs all this like horrible advice, and then he's like, I killed this guy, by the way.
God.
But he's playing him, you know.
I haven't gotten to see that one yet. And I know he has some, I don't know, varied degrees of that kind of thing. But in this one, I think it's one of the I guess last just sort of odious characters he plays. I mean, despite sort of the unpleasantness of seeing him with his niece going around the movie, I think this is also the sweetest he and Mia Farrow have been on screen together.
I don't know. Broadway Danny Rose, I think they have really good chemistry.
Yeah, no, I like her performance in that one a lot, but I think in terms of like, she has a subtlety here that I think is not very apparent in some of her other roles. I think that I need to rewatch some of these ones where I'm thinking this, but in a number of their collaborations, I feel like she is sort of the shrinking violet that really doesn't have too much more going for. Like in September, he just basically tries to turn her into Liv Ullmann in Autumn Sonata, and it's sort of like, okay, come on. Like, she's got like the pigtails and like the big circular glasses too. It's just sort of like, all right, Woody, we know what you're going for.
We know you like Bergman.
Yeah. But I think here she has sort of poise that isn't necessarily as apparent in some of their other collaborations together. And this is the movie for me that like epitomizes what about Woody Allen's films aesthetically speaking. Because I mean, it's Sven Nykvist on the camera. Like, I am a huge Bergman fan, so I'm okay with that. But in Pauline Kael's review of this, she talks about how like the colors are drained of color, like it is just like leached of any sort of real color going on with it. But I think that what I like most about this is how delicate the white and like eggshell and like off-white colors are. It's very, very like, I don't know, particular and subtle about that. And you add that with like the collars over sweaters and walk and talk 2 shots in a park and a little bit of jazz here and there, and like, I'm sold. Speaking,
I also thought going on. The spacing was really good, like the spacing of the shots as well, like the way the characters kind of filled them out. Like, I loved all the ophthalmologist office kind of scenes where he's talking to the rabbi.
Well, yeah, and too, the rabbi going blind by the end. I mean, it really does hit home that sort of optical. It's almost like a Dario Argento film and how it foregrounds eyes and lack of sight in that way. And I think at times even like it's a bit too on the nose thematically with like the talking so much about that. I mean, he's an ophthalmologist. Eyes of God are always watching. You know, like it like eyes are the windows of the soul when he sees the corpse.
When he sees when she says that,
and to be a bit more balanced in this, Pauline Kael's review of this, she did not like it very much, but something that she's especially
when does she ever like him?
Yeah, oh gosh, that's Woody Allen. She's not usually a fan of his, but she points out the mistress character and says that we aren't allowed to sympathize with her at all, and that like the camera lingers on her ass, and that she's like sexualized and objectified and never given any sort of like sense of sympathy, and we're supposed to root for Judah, which I don't necessarily think is the right characterization of this movie. Although I think it is very fair critique for something like Match Point or some of his later films that have similar sort of mistress getting involved type things. Just I think in this one, I just Angelica Houston I think did a really good job, and I think I just sort of, even though like she doesn't necessarily get too much like of her own perspective shown, I think that it's enough of like you really feel for her. You know, she's sad in a way that I think is a bit more sympathetic than I think it is sort of just shallow.
Yeah,
I didn't feel that it was a kind of sexualization of her.
You sympathize with her. You sympathize with her because I don't know. She's very like distraught and kind of like, just kind of, I don't know. She feels. I mean, she definitely has like a lot of problems and stuff, and like feels like abandoned and stuff, and like wants that type of like connection with Judah, and it's like I never was like, oh man, her again. Like I don't think that's a really fair criticism.
Well, and they almost get like an Annie Hall type shot of them walking on the beach at sunset, you know, talking. Like it's using things from Alan's own filmography that give it a sort of romantic poignance to it. That I don't think it's fair to say that she's just this sort of distraught mistress, flat stereotype. I think that exists in other Alan films, but I don't think this is the one to draw that.
Just to kind of highlight a conversation between them too. I love there's a conversation in her kitchen. I'm forgetting her name, but she's talking about how she gave up things for him, and he just I love she's talking about, I had business opportunities, I had things lined up that I wanted to do, but I neglected that because I wanted to be with you. And then he responds with, well, you know, I never made any promises, and it just really highlights how differently they kind of viewed their relationship. And I think that kind of elevates her more than just being, however you want to put her, as I think it makes her more than just one note. And like, honestly, when she was right down the road, she was right down the road. She's like, I'm going to come and I'm going to tell your wife. I wanted her to. Like, I was honestly rooting more for her to just break that ice and just for it to be out there. Because she's talking about all of her mental issues that she's going through and how that isn't helping her, and how, you know, she's going off what he told her.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry,
and
not to interrupt.
again, no, you're good. You're good. I was gonna say, like, even like her death scene, I think is really poignant because it's playing Schubert, which is the composer that they're talking about in that beach scene or whatever, when they're talking about classical music. So like, it really foregrounds the fact like she had these ambitions and these things that she liked about him, and it's foregrounding that, or calling back to that previous scene that was romantically coded given the sort of Annie Hall reinterpretation. And then it's used for the death scene. So I think that like, even though she isn't necessarily like most prominent speaking sort of role, and she does have like a clearly defined goal in almost a classical sense that does limit her character psychology in ways that aren't as clear for other people. I think that that there's certainly like, I don't know, you really like are sad about everything that's happening to her, and you think that Judah is a scumbag.
Oh yeah, totally. They should have just sent her to Buffalo, you know?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I honestly thought, I was like, she's not gonna die. Like, he's gonna go by her house, and I honestly thought the hitman was gonna be hooking up with her, and he was like, I'm gonna take her mind off of it. Like,
Fulton, you sound like me. You sound like me when I watched Bridge to Terabithia when I was like 8, and I was like, there's no way she's dead.
I just like didn't like, I just didn't and just like from the conversation that they were having between Judah and his friend, the hitman or whatever, I don't know.
It's his brother.
Yeah, his brother. Yeah.
Yeah, his brother.
That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. He's like, well, okay, well, he's like, well, don't kill her. And then his brother's like, well, what did you call me for? Like, what did you want out of this? And he's like,
it's Freudian.
Yeah.
You know, he knew what was going to be happening.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very like it's like when you like know what you want when you're talking to somebody, but you don't want to say it, and you're just kind of like you're just trying to make it so they'll say it, so then you don't feel as bad. And I think that also plays into like the whole morality of the situation and how it's kind of shown in this film.
Yeah. I mean, Alan has made an entire filmography off of showing himself as a coward, especially in like Love and Death. That's like his whole thing. He's drafted to war in Russia, and it doesn't want to do it. But I think that Judah is maybe the biggest coward in his entire filmography because like it's actually serious. His cowardice gets people killed. His desire to cling on to sort of the bourgeois values at the time.
And a great quote about bourgeois values is saying is when he says God is a luxury I can't afford, because it shows like lack of he has wealth and affluence, of course, but like no like just spiritually is just kind of like nowhere. Doesn't have anything.
Well, and that's what I find so interesting about this movie is sort of like it's a bit like Hannah and her sisters and like The Purple Rose of Cairo, and like they're a bit optimistic for Woody's own disposition. This one isn't necessarily that, but it is a bit more religious than he usually allows himself to ever be. Or at least like nostalgic for the moral systems that come with religion, whether or not you buy into them or not.
Yeah, very true. I was reminded of the dinner tables, the dinner scene where he goes. The flashback I think is great. That was why I was talking about how great the ending to Godfather 2 was today, because it made me revisit that scene. Just because I don't know, it just reminded me of that, just family dinners and stuff. But the way that they're talking. The way that they kind of have like this discussion and stuff, and how it's so wonderfully tied into it, and it kind of shows like how his upbringing, how he's using his upbringing and like that conversation to kind of justify things. Is I think it's great writing.
I completely agree.
It's just it's one of the times where Alan sort of gets being serious right. I mean, the man's known for his comedy. His dramas are usually an acquired taste, if you can even acquire them at all. And I think what I like about this movie is that it takes the sort of like A and B plot structure that we see with a lot of classical storytelling, and it uses it in a very interesting way. Both of them are doing some form of transgression, and how they are able to get away with it is determined on their own class. We have Judah, who's extremely rich, and we have Cliff, who is this struggling documentary artist. So they're of completely different means, even though they are in similar social circles. And just the way that if you're of a certain, I don't know, class, you're able to get away with any kind of unspeakable horror, which does make this a kind of a weird movie. Like this and any of Alan's Dostoevsky rips are a little bit weird watching sort of from this day and age, because like seeing him make a movie where someone like gets away with the crime they did by just ignoring it is a little bit like, okay, Woody, even though this one was made certainly before any of those allegations. But something like Match Point has a similar bit to it too, where like it's sort of about this very rich person getting away with their crimes, and it has a sort of like long night of the soul right before they sort of decide like, oh well, just not going to. I don't know. I have a tough time considering it in some ways with it, and this is why there are other Alan films I like more than this one. I think this oftentimes people consider this one to be his best, and I think it's some of his tightest storytelling, like in terms of just the way that the story unfolds is one of the better things I've seen from him. But in terms of just considering it ideologically, or as someone who is watching Woody Allen films and always trying never to give him any money and renting from the library and pirating and buying used whenever I can, watching this film have that kind of ending does make me feel a little bit weird.
It's not like
It's more icky.
it's not like something like Annie Hall, which I can easily say is my favorite of the Allen films that I've watched, on top of being one of my favorite scripts, because it doesn't have any of those underlying things.
You,
Well,
you forget the joke about 16-year-old twins.
oh,
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. No, like for my early time, like watching Woody Allen films was me just like getting a running counter of every single time he had like elderly professor type who marries his student, like age gap relationship from someone who likes being educated by the older male partner. Any kinds of like him talking about young women being erotic, because that's sort of the word he uses. I mean,
It's
Manhattan
so
in general.
often.
I could not watch like the first time I watched Manhattan, I like did tear up a bit when I was seeing him and her in the Muriel Hemingway in the apartment with him talking about their great sex life. I was like, this is disgusting. It's really
Yeah.
hard to watch. Like I think Manhattan is a beautifully shot film. It is his art film with a capital A. But
Yeah.
I like trying to watch it and like take it for what people thought it was sort of talking about at the time it came out is really, really difficult to do at the time or at this time.
I mean, yeah, I think it's a great film, but it does, yeah, it's just like, geez. But yeah, is there anything else that y'all would like to say about Crimes and Misdemeanors?
There was one thing that Chris, I know you know more about Godard than me, and Pate, since you recommended meeting WA, I was interested to know, does Godard really dislike Woody Allen?
Well,
Or
there's a
what
poster
was...
for La Chinoise in this. So he references Godard within the film. I know that and some of his earlier films, or Allen's earlier films, like Bananas have a bit of a Godard influence to them. I don't know how Godard feels about Woody Allen personally, because like in meeting WA, like he sort of says like, you try and make your movie like a book, and I try and make my movies sort of like movies. You know, like I think he understands that they make very different types of films. But I think he has like, or at least had at that period of time, a certain degree of, I don't know, interest or respect for him. Although like Godard, whether or not Godard likes his peers is something that's sort of been up in the air for a time.
I mean,
it
Godard's
fits.
Godard's been burning bridges for a while now. I mean, him and Truffaut.
Didn't him and Varda?
I want to say that him and Varda kind of had a falling out too, but I don't want to. I'm not.
Didn't he?
100%.
Or didn't she try and like knock on his door in like Faces Places, and he like didn't answer or something?
I do remember hearing that. Yeah,
because I was just trying to understand the short Meeting Woody Allen, because it almost seems
mocking or mean.
Mocking. Yeah, it's
like that's the best. Like that's the I have no other idea how, because I didn't really. It just felt off to me.
It's very strange to consider it. And because my thing is, when I first watched it, I was sort of like, I have watched a good number of Woody Allen films, but I was doing a Godard binge over the summer, and I was just sort of like, yes, like cinema's most unabashed narcissist colliding with its most self-loathing one. And I mean, I think he's certainly like playing with it in a fun way, but like knowing what Godard's tone is in any one of his films has always been something I've had a little bit of trouble with.
Yeah,
like
that's what I love about his movies, is that it's always kind of
whether or not he's sincere.
Yeah, he's always kind of like especially like looking at his politics. Like you'll watch something like Le Chinois and you'll say, okay, well this guy was a Maoist, but he's also saying, hey, look at how stupid these.
He was criticizing the New Left.
Like, he's criticizing, like being critical of the New Left, but also kind of believing in their ideals and stuff. Doing the whole Giga Vertov group thing.
Well, and like when I first watched Contempt, I was like, I can't really enjoy this. This man's really insincere about any kind of melodrama stuff that's happening with him, which was weird to me because like Martin Scorsese's like whenever I watch this movie I cry. And I was like, I don't really get that. But like my second watch I did. I just think he has a very particular kind of tone. And I do think it benefited Alan to take that on the chin and reincorporated it into this for that sort of documentary bit at the end.
Yeah, I think so too.
It was a good payoff, like for
Yeah.
sure, comedically.
Well,
Yeah.
we haven't touched on the philosopher, the professor killing himself at the end.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So yeah, throughout
yeah.
the movie, there's this philosopher that Woody Allen's character, which I can't forget, Cliff. He's doing kind of a subject. He's doing like a piece on him for a work. It's kind of like his passion film that he's making, and he shows it to Mia Farrow throughout the film, and she thinks it's great. He's gonna try to sell it to some executives, and then just out of nowhere, the philosopher kills himself, and Woody Allen says like, this guy like survived like World War II, like he's seen the worst of the worst, and he killed himself.
And his suicide note was, "I've gone out the window." That's
yeah,
all
I've gone out the
it wasn't
window.
anything. Watching that, I was thinking about sort of like me reading Infinite Jest and then David Foster Wallace having committed suicide, and I was like, damn,
Yeah.
he had such like life affirming, like optimistic outlook despite and in the face of any kind of cynicism, like acknowledging it fully. And so like with this one, it's just sort of like, God, I don't know. It definitely is one of the more, it's very much a downer of an ending to consider that alongside Judah just getting away with it and Alan getting his divorce, Alan's Cliff character getting his divorce, and
not ending up with Mia Farrow.
And not ending up with Mia Farrow. And just sort of sitting there, which I think it's one of the better dramatic endings in an Alan film. Because sometimes like something like Interiors is a bit overwrought, and something like Stardust Memories is just sort of all over the place. But I think here he's able to hit home, even if it's a bit on the nose. I think he gets the thematics across by the end of it in a way that he hasn't elsewhere.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really did like the ending, and again, it I think. Well, I don't know if watching this and In Cold Blood back to back would be necessarily a good idea, just because of how depressing they are. But I just think they're really interesting morally, and
I would
not to repeat myself, but they both have very down endings. They're big downers. I'd say In Cold Blood is probably the saddest ending to it's probably one of the more saddest films I've ever seen. But what were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, like, if you were gonna find other Alan films to pair this with, I think that Hannah and Her Sisters would be a good one, because it has Alan as a similarly like sort of secondary character doing comic relief. It's a bit more pronounced in Hannah and Her Sisters. That one is more of a straight comedy with a little bit of dramatic elements to it, and it isn't as much of a downer at the end. He has a very optimistic look, and in that one, sort of his character like has a sort of like aha moment where he like sort of tries to accept life as it is. And Alan was like, people thought I was optimistic, but that's not what I was going for, and I hate that, and I failed. And I was like, well, I mean, it's better than what you would have been going for, if you're to have that much of a downer. And so I think that's sort of how Crimes and Misdemeanors came into being. Or I think another one to do would be The Purple Rose of Cairo, which is fascinating movie in which Mia Farrow is a movie fanatic who goes to cinema every day in like a depression, and she has a husband who like beats her, and it's just very sad. And one of the characters like is like, hey, you've seen this movie like 11 times. You really like this movie, like addressing her and the audience, and like steps off the screen and becomes like a real person, and they like have a romance. And the actor who plays him has to fly in and try and get him back into the screen so he doesn't ruin his reputation. And it's her choosing between the actor who is like a real person or the character who is like represents fiction. It is also kind of flat. And it has an ending that I think is very, very surprising, and probably, I would say, the best ending outside of Annie Hall in Alan's filmography.
I think I've seen
But
clips from that one.
it's
always
good to pair with
interesting.
this one, I think.
Yeah.
This is one of his more, I guess, like straight endings, and Purple Rose of Cairo has elements of this, but I don't think it falls as fully into sort of despair as this one does.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
It does
it's,
have a heavy sense of despair.
Yeah.
Well,
Anything else from y'all?
no, I don't have anything else to say other than yeah, please check this out.
Yeah.
It's a bit hard to find. It's not streaming anywhere, but you know, you'll find it somewhere. I'm just gonna say that.
Rent it from your local libraries. They oftentimes will have a copy.
Yeah.
Ask your friends who are good at procuring things online. But do not pay money for this unless you get it used. That's what I will say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's a recommend from me too, as well as Annie Hall.
And Fulton, do you want to tell everybody what our movie next week is?
Yes, our feature film next week will be Brian De Palma's Body Double, and I'm pretty excited because I enjoy a lot of Brian De Palma's work. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on, Pate. It was a pleasure.
Thank y'all.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for having me.
All right. And stay wavy.
Have a good one.